Jean Claude Van Damme is a Belgian martial arts icon turned global action film star whose life reads like a classic underdog-to-world champion story. Born Jean Claude Camille Francois van Varenberg in Brussels in 1960, he grew from a physically weak child into a European karate champion, then into one of the most recognizable faces of 1980s and 1990s martial arts cinema. This biography will trace his journey from his early years in Belgium, through his rise in Hollywood, the turbulence of his mid-career, and his later life comeback as actor and cultural symbol, while also examining his public image, personal struggles, and influence on action film and pop culture. Jean Claude Van Damme was born on October 18, 1960, in Berchem Saint-Agathe, a suburb of Brussels, Belgium. His parents were Eliana, a Flemish homemaker, and Eugene van Varenberg, an accountant and florist. His paternal grandmother was Jewish, adding a multi-layered cultural background to his upbringing. He was raised in the Roman Catholic tradition, attending church and absorbing the moral and ritualistic framework that would later contrast with the violent on-screen persona he would inhabit. As a child, Van Damme was slight and not naturally athletic, which left him vulnerable to bullying and self-doubt. His father, noticing his frailty, enrolled him in a Shotokan karate school at age 10, hoping the discipline would strengthen his body and his self-esteem. This decision set the foundation for a life centered on physical training, choreography, and the aesthetics of movement. Early in his teens, he began weightlifting and ballet, the latter remaining a surprising but crucial influence on his later fight scene choreography and his striking, almost dancer-like screen presence. Growing up in Brussels in the 1960s and 1970s, Van Damme was exposed to European cinema, American westerns, and burgeoning martial arts films. He admired classic tough guy actors such as Charles Bronson, Steve McQueen, and James Dean, as well as the raw, kinetic power of Bruce Lee and Jean-Paul Belmondo. These figures shaped his idea of what a male action star could be: physically imposing, emotionally intense, and morally centered even within violent worlds. That cocktail of European cool and American muscle would later define his own screen persona. Martial arts career and physical transformation. By his early teens, Van Damme had become a serious martial arts competitor. He joined the Centre National de Karate in Brussels under Claude Getz, training rigorously in Shotokan karate and later branching into full-contact karate and kickboxing. Between the ages of 15 and his early 20s, he compiled a record of dozens of tournament victories, including 44 wins and only 4 defeats in semi-contact karate bouts, and 18 knockouts in 19 full-contact fights with 1 loss. These exploits brought him recognition in Europe's martial arts scene, and he was named to the Belgian karate team that won the European Karate Championship in 1979. In 1978, he also won the Mr. Belgium bodybuilding title, cementing his reputation not just as a skilled fighter, but as a sculpted physical specimen. The combination of martial arts acumen and classical bodybuilding gave him a rare, camera-ready physique that would later become his calling card in Hollywood. His ballet training, which he sustained for about 5 years starting at age 16, added flexibility, balance, and grace to his kicks and falls, making his action sequences look fluid and almost weightless. Van Damme later described ballet as one of the most demanding disciplines he ever tackled, arguing that if someone could endure a ballet class, they could survive any other sport-style workout. This period of training shaped his physical identity. He was no longer the skinny boy from Brussels, but a young man whose body was his primary instrument. By the turn of the 1980s, he was already a local celebrity within Belgian martial arts circles, and his gaze was increasingly turning toward the global stage of American cinema. Moving to America and early Hollywood struggles. In 1982, at age 21, Van Damme sold his small Brussels gym, California Gym, and used the proceeds to move to Los Angeles with childhood friend Michel Kisai. The gym, which he had opened in 1979, offered karate, aerobics, and bodybuilding programs and had become a profitable local business. But his father strongly opposed the sale, unable to understand why his son would trade financial security for an uncertain Hollywood dream. For Van Damme, however, the risk was essential. He believed he had to test himself in the world's most competitive entertainment industry if he were ever to become a cinematic martial arts star. Once in Los Angeles, the reality was harsher than he expected. With most of his money deposited in a European bank, he lived on a tight budget, often surviving on a few $1,000s while trying to break into the film business. He took menial jobs: limousine driver, waiter, aerobics instructor, and nightclub bouncer to cover rent and food. He also began working out religiously at Gold's Gym in Santa Monica, running along the beach each night to maintain his mental and physical stamina. To get work, he exploited the hunger of the B-movie and martial arts scene. He sent resumes and photos in response to casting notices, and at one point even fabricated a story about a fictional Hong Kong investor backing a project, just to get producers to call him back. This blend of desperation and hustle led to his first appearances in American cinema, an uncredited bit part in the breakdancing film Breakin', 1984, a stunt role in Chuck Norris's Missing in Action, 1984, and a short film role in Monaco Forever, 1984. These early steps were small, but they established his physical presence and began to build industry awareness of his athletic abilities. The Bloodsport breakthrough. The turning point in Van Damme's career came with the 1988 film Bloodsport, a no-frills martial arts film built around the alleged true story of American fighter Frank Dux. The project was produced by Cannon Films, a low-budget studio hungry for the next martial arts sensation. When Van Damme demonstrated his signature 360-degree helicopter kick to producer Menahem Golan, the move was so visually striking that it effectively sold his casting as the lead. Shot on a modest budget of about $1.5 million, Bloodsport follows U.S. Army Captain Frank Dux, trained by a secretive ninjutsu master, entering the underground Kumite tournament in Hong Kong. Though the film's narrative was thin and the production values were modest, the fight sequences were unusually brutal and dynamic for the time, and Van Damme's physical performance, showcasing his splits, flying kicks, and precise timing, immediately set him apart from other martial arts actors. The film was a surprise hit, grossing around $35 million at the U.S. box office, and it established Van Damme as a leading man in the martial arts genre. Bloodsport reintroduced audiences to the visceral appeal of unarmed combat on screen, and Van Damme became the Muscles from Brussels, a nickname that captured both his European roots and his almost cartoon-like physique. The movie's success opened the door to a string of action vehicles that would define his star image throughout the late 1980s and 1990s. Rise to international stardom, late 1980s, 1990s. Following Bloodsport, Cannon Films quickly tried to capitalize on Van Damme's popularity. They offered him the lead in several projects, including Cyborg, 1989, a cyberpunk martial arts film directed by Albert Pyun. Van Damme chose Cyborg, a modest-budget, post-apocalyptic actioner that became a cult favorite and a profitable box office sleeper, proving that his newly minted star power could sell movies beyond the pure martial arts niche. In the same year, he headlined Kickboxer, 1989, a revenge-driven tale about a kickboxer forced to rescue his brother from a brutal Thai champion. The film was a commercial success, earning over $50 million on a $3 million budget, and it laid the foundation for a long-running franchise. Van Damme served not only as star, but also as writer and fight choreographer, giving him unusual creative control for a martial arts actor at the time. The early 1990s saw Van Damme transition from a martial arts specialist into a broader action hero. In Double Impact, 1991, he played twin brothers Alex and Chad Wagner, a dual role that allowed him to showcase both a more serious, stoic side and a flamboyant, American-style action persona. The film was moderately successful at the box office and became a fan favorite for its over-the-top stunts and comic interplay between the two characters. In 1992, he starred in Universal Soldier, a sci-fi action film directed by Roland Emmerich about reanimated soldiers cloned or resurrected from the dead. Van Damme's Luke Devereaux contrasted with Dolph Lundgren's unhinged Sergeant Andrew Scott, creating one of the era's most memorable hero-villain pairings. Universal Soldier grossed over $100 million worldwide, becoming one of the biggest hits of the year within the action genre and solidifying Van Damme as a global star. Cultural impact and sex symbol status. Beyond their box office success, Van Damme's early starring vehicles had a significant cultural impact. His ability to perform his own splits, head-level kicks, and cartwheels without obvious stunt doubles made him a standout in the martial arts boom of the late 1980s. Where other martial arts stars relied on tight editing and camera tricks, Van Damme often demanded long, fluid shots that showcased his athleticism, which in turn made his films feel more visceral and grounded in physical reality. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, he became a bona fide sex symbol, a rare status among action stars. Magazines such as the National Enquirer named him one of the world's sexiest men, placing him at the top of their list in 1991. Behind the image was a deliberate cultivation of his physique and on-camera presence. He often appeared shirtless or in tight, revealing outfits, underlining his muscular form and ballet-trained flexibility. This sex symbol status helped broaden his appeal beyond martial arts enthusiasts. Women and queer audiences embraced his image, and his popularity in Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America grew rapidly. The gay karate man persona he had briefly played in Monaco forever, and his recurring on-screen nudity, most notably in the shower scene from Lionheart, became running jokes and also markers of his willingness to play with gendered expectations. The 1990s, highs, missteps, and personal decline. Van Damme's commercial peak came in the mid-1990s, when he headlined a string of varied but financially successful projects. In 1993, he starred in Hard Target, the first American film by Hong Kong director John Woo, which paired his martial arts prowess with Woo's slow-motion, gunplay aesthetic. Also that year, he played a time-traveling cop in Timecop, 1994, directed by Peter Hyams, which became his highest-grossing lead vehicle to date, earning over $100 million worldwide. Later hits, such as Street Fighter, 1994, adapted from the popular video game series, and Sudden Death, 1995, an arena hostage thriller, kept his name in marquees and home video shelves. He even directed, wrote, and starred in The Quest, 1996, a martial arts adventure set in China, which did better overseas than in the United States. That year, he also appeared in a high-profile cameo on the hit sitcom Friends, the one after the Super Bowl, further embedding him in mainstream American pop culture. However, the 1990s also brought setbacks. Films such as Double Team, 1997, a sci-fi action vehicle co-starring Dennis Rodman, and Knock Off, 1998, a poorly received Hong Kong-style actioner for director Tsui Hark, underperformed and were widely criticized. Even when he delivered solid performances, audiences were beginning to tire of his formulaic action roles, and the rise of CGI-heavy blockbusters started to shift studios' priorities. Behind the scenes, Van Damme's personal life was unraveling. By the mid-1990s, he had developed a severe cocaine habit, reportedly spending up to $10,000 per week and consuming up to 10 grams a day. He also struggled with alcohol and prescription drugs, which affected his work ethic, relationships, and public image. In 1999, he was arrested for driving under the influence, a widely publicized incident that underlined his vulnerability and tarnished his carefully crafted heroic persona. Troubled relationships and personal life. Van Damme's romantic life has been almost as dramatic as his filmography. He has been married 5 times, to 4 different women, and has 3 children. His first marriage to bodybuilder Gladys Portugues, from 1989 to 1992, produced 2 children, Christopher "Chris" Van Varenberg and Bianca Bridget, now known professionally as Bianca Brie. Both Chris and Bianca have followed their father into acting, appearing in minor roles and reality-style projects. In 1994, he married actress Darcy Lapierre, with whom he had a son, Nicholas. That same year, he began an affair with Kylie Minogue, his co-star in Street Fighter, while Lapierre was pregnant with their child. The affair became public only years later, when Van Damme admitted it in interviews, causing further strain on his already fragile relationships. He later remarried Gladys Portugues in 1999, a union that has endured longer than his other marriages, though their relationship has been marked by separations and public spats. Van Damme has also had high-profile interactions with other celebrities, including appearances on reality-style shows and talk formats, which have exposed both his charm and his volatility. His personal turbulence is not just tabloid fodder. It directly reflects his mental health struggles. In the late 1990s, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition he later discussed openly in the 2011 British reality series Jean Claude Van Damme, Behind Closed Doors. He described his mood swings as extreme, ranging from euphoric confidence to profound depression, and credited medication and therapy with helping him regain stability. The 2000s slump, direct-to-video, and image fatigue. As the 2000s dawned, Van Damme's box office currency began to fade. Many of his early 2000s films, including Replicant, 2001, In Hell, 2003, and Wake of Death, 2004, went straight to video or were released in limited markets, bypassing wide theatrical runs. These projects maintained his presence in the action film ecosystem, but rarely reignited the critical or commercial enthusiasm he had enjoyed in the 1980s and 1990s. The reasons for this decline were both industrial and personal. On the industry side, the tastes of global audiences were shifting towards CG-heavy superhero films and more nuanced, character-driven actioners. Van Damme's relatively simple, fight-centered narratives and distinctive accent seemed increasingly old-fashioned in this new landscape. At the same time, his reputation as a troubled, sometimes unreliable star made studios cautious about committing large budgets to his projects.